This is Deborah Johnson for Women at Halftime, and I'm passionate about helping women use their untapped skills, resources, and talents to create their ideal work and lifestyle, making a difference in their second half. Well, hello, this is Deborah Johnson, and it's great to be here with you today with a wonderful subject, the lone competitor competing against yourself. You may be wondering, why am I approaching a subject like this, competing against yourself? But I'll get into it, and I think it'll make a lot of sense to you. So just a couple announcements as I'm beginning here, that we are still, as this airs, in the bonus days for A New Way of Doing Business, that online course. And all you need to do is go to anewayofdoingbusiness.com. And the card is closing soon. These are bonus days, and you get a lot for included with that course because of the bonuses. And also, there are a couple free webinars that you can access, but especially the one on working remotely through any economy. And if you go to goalsforyourlife.com/free-webinar, you can access that immediately, working remotely through any economy. It has a wonderful download, 4-page download, and wonderful material in there. So make sure you access that as well. I have a lot of free material available on many of my websites. So let's get into this subject because it was a really fun one for me to address because competing against yourself, I found myself even applying some of these principles. I just updated my operating system on my computer. And if any of you have not done this before, you probably have this sinking feeling in your stomach as I said that, because you know what it means is that all of a sudden you have programs that are not working. Even my recording program, my video program, these are in my wheelhouse. These are some of my uniqueness that I put out material a lot with that. And it was a challenge, and I had to bring up my sort of competitive spirit to be able to even get through this, because you just feel like, oh my goodness, what is the use? What am I doing right now? And I've got to pay for these upgrades, but it's very worth it in the long haul. But it's just tough when you're doing a lot of that all at once. But we're going to talk about that and some of those principles and how it helps us get through some of these obstacles, because many are really working through a lot of things right now as they're having to reinvent, restart, reboot. There's a lot at stake right now with businesses that are just trying to survive. And that's been a main part of what my business has been recently, is helping people through some of those steps. So with competition, we recently, I had an episode on competition with my husband, Greg. You'll want to make sure you listen to all of those episodes with him. They're a lot of fun. But, he was a professional athlete. I've been a professional musician for years. We both know competition very, very well. And it usually refers to 2 or more people. So when you're talking about competing against yourself, you're kind of wondering, okay, so what does that mean? But really, you're creating a contest, a game, or a goal to succeed or win. And I knew I had a goal in updating some of my software so I could even produce the podcasts how I want to produce them. It was a frustrating process, by the way, and one that I've been through many times before, and you think, okay, well, maybe I'll have to never do this again, but never say never, because usually it will come back around. So really, the mindset of competition, you have to set some sort of goal as the key. And you can't get just totally frustrated at that. You have to realize, well, it may take just a little bit longer than you expect. And for me, I hate to waste time. I just, I feel like there are certain things, especially technically, that are just time suckers. They're just, why do I have to spend an hour and a half finding the right upgrade to this plugin so I could use this program? But you have to realize, this is my end goal. I know I can get through this. There's always a way. There's always a way. So comparing to where you've come from to where you will be should encourage you and motivate you to really reach your target and your goal. And we can take many examples from sports. And this is where it's really fun to do these episodes with my husband because, of course, he has been in professional sports. But that's why we got along so well, even in dating and in our relationship, is because we both understand that competitive edge. We understand what training is necessary. So with runners or bikers, beating your previous time is important when you're getting ready for a race. And for musicians, this is where I relate really well, is performing a piece or a technical exercise. You can increase the level so you can go faster or more accurate. Sometimes you have to really, really slow down to get there and then add that accuracy and strength, or with more dynamics to just kind of relax it a little bit. So those sort of principles apply to almost everything. And in business, it could be beating the sales goals you had in the previous month or even the previous year, or it could be making more phone calls, or it could be making more contacts on a regular basis, and just kind of seeing where your numbers are and seeing, oh, well, maybe I could do a little bit better. And that's that self-competition a little bit. Not to get discouraged, though. And that's important. That's the mindset, not to get down on yourself for not doing more. But it's to set the type of goals that will encourage your personal sense of competition for something that you are doing and that you're building for yourself. And this is very, very important. Many are now building for themselves. They may not be employed by someone else, and now it's time for them to develop their own dreams, or they're doing this on the side. This is what I really encourage people to do with a side business, is to develop something on the side and grow it organically and very gradually. And then you can take the leap at some point. So, and to me, it's so funny. I get a little jaded at times because trophies have very short-term value. And many get excited. Oh, I've won this award. I've won that award, and do all that. But, trophies, they gather dust. And as we have recently cleaned out, both sets of parents have passed recently in the last 5 years, mine in the last 2. And you see all those old trophies and boxes of them. It seems like you get a trophy for almost everything. But the significance of those is it's discounted at some future date. So even with all of those sort of awards for some of that competition, but really the competition in itself was healthy because it helped you reach some other goals and some future goals. And having the spirit of self-competition, it will keep you fresh and with a good perspective, especially if the competition is realistic and obtainable, because you're setting some good guidelines and you're making them measurable. So we're going to talk, how do you do that? And I do have some ideas for you. And so when you're thinking about competition, you want to think about where you eventually want to be. And that can be in a year, it can be in 5 years, or even 10 years for some. Now, in 10 years with my business, I want so much stuff automated that I can pick and choose whatever and whenever I want to work. And I'm at the halftime of life. I want to pour myself into people to help them for the next 10 years at least, to, if not 15, but to really create the content that will help them grow and learn. But in my personal time and business, I want to be able to pick and choose, to not have to be crazy busy, getting totally stressed out when I can't update software, although I'll probably still be going through it because they're always going to update systems. But boy, I'll pick and choose, definitely. But the principles that I'm going to talk about today will apply to most any area. But I'm going to use the illustration of getting in shape. And I feel like this is especially relevant after we spent a lot of time in isolation with COVID-19 and with local gyms closed and some just opening as this episode airs. And a little self-competition may just help you move forward in this area. And I know it has helped me because I felt like even my personal fitness level is not what it was, even though I've been taking these great walks. So setting some of those little goals and some of that, a little system in place has really, really helped me. So I'm going to cover 3 different areas. We're going to set a goal. We're going to give a reward. Boy, that was a tough one to say. Reward. And we are going to create a new habit. And this is all principles. These are principles that you have heard before, but I really want to remind you and maybe put a little different slant on them for today in today's time. So I just read a statistic that, and this was very interesting. It was backed by research that an extra 10 pounds adds 40 pounds of pressure on your joints, especially your knees and your hips. 40 pounds of pressure. And I was thinking, boy, I've gained a few extra pounds. And even though I've continued walking, just my walking, as I mentioned, it hasn't pushed me. My cycle classes really did that at the regular gym workout. And I had my little workout cards. I was working, 6 days a week working out and really regular on that, doing a lot of weights. But they were, it wasn't hard. It was just within an hour I would do my little workout, and it really worked for me. But just the walking wasn't pushing me. And so here is where that spirit of competition comes back in. As we go back to the definition of creating a contest and a game or a goal to succeed or win, that sort of spirit may help you bump up your workouts and even change your diet. Boy, that's a big one, isn't it? Changing your diet. And we do have to think about not just our what we're eating, but how much we are eating. And of course, I have some free downloads. I'll put all of that in the article and in the show notes. But I have some free goals downloads, and you'll want to make sure also, and I'll announce this at the end of this podcast, next week's, which you are not going to want to miss because my husband's back on, but we are going to talk about nutrition. So you'll want to make sure you get there. So, that's number 1 is setting a goal for a year from now. And go ahead and start with fitness or start with something. When you apply these goals in one area, they usually will have their fingers and go into other areas. And when I'm feeling better physically, I'm able to work harder and create more stamina for some of the other things that I am doing. So remember, this is everything kind of cross-pollinates. So it's a great sort of principle there. And number 2, after you've set that goal, and set it for a year from now, and then kind of back up from that, I have some goals worksheets. So those, you'll want to make sure you access. Give a reward. So what reward will you give yourself for regularly working out harder for a period of time? And this is that first step. So you don't want to think about just weight and where you're at and getting on that scale every day. That's actually kind of dangerous if you get on the scale every single day, because you'll get really, really discouraged. Because one day, especially with women, I mean, all you have to do is drink extra water before bed and your weight's going to be up the next morning. So, you look at it maybe a week at a time or a couple days at a time at least. So, but the main point here is not just thinking about the weight, but creating a new habit. And that's our number 3, is creating that habit. But we're going to talk about a little rewards here on the number 2, because if you set those little rewards, they will end up paying off for you. And you need to set something that will be interesting to you. So, maybe, a new outfit, or I've never been one just counting the calories, but you might have, you can have a little extra at the end of the day if you've saved calories in one area. And, those sort of little games may help you there. As I apply this to music, my mother was always trying to get my sisters and I to practice. And we practiced, but there were periods of time where we were, not as motivated. And so she put these little presents on top of the old piano we had in our living room. And they would be in these little bright boxes, and there'd be little prizes. So if we practiced all week, and she did that for us. And I still remember because I was pretty excited. Well, do that for yourself. Do a little something, just a little something to say, okay, if I'm good this week, I can do this. And just don't over binge though, because we know with calories how that yo-yo stuff happens. And so we want to make sure that you stay pretty regular on that. Great books to read, and we'll talk about this in our third step too, are the habits, are Charles Duhigg, The Power of Habit, and one of my favorites has been The Atomic Habits by James Clear. Those will really help you too. It'll motivate you actually, and that's a good thing. So here we've got creating a goal a year from now, but with our rewards, you want to make very short-term goals so you can have some sort of a little prize or a little reward, and then create another short-term goal and just go a little higher, a little harder. And then, after you get done with that one, do another little one and make it just a little bit, walk 5 more minutes or another 15 minutes. And I know I did that with my walks, actually, as I just increased some of my days. I increased one of the hills I was walking up, and it created a little bit of a difference. It made me breathe a little bit harder. So, but we all know how these rewards, if we're not careful, especially in food, the splurges and how they can get out of hand, and you can erase all your work. But the main thing to remember in the rewards is that you can create very small steps with very small little rewards that are important to you. Not just that, someone else is going to give you. Do it, for yourself. Create a little game board just for you. Allow yourself, to go on, on a computer game for a little bit for extra, or watch a new movie or something like that. And so move yourself up every time to just another little goal for you. So that self-competition, you can set those little goals for yourself, and it'll help you move ahead for just little tiny ones for that little reward. So after your first goal, you've done that for your goal for a year from now, but then give a reward. And within this is to give a reward for small little steps of getting to that goal. And then number 3 is to create that new habit or build upon another habit. And that's talked about in Atomic Habits by James Clear, and Charles Duhigg talks about that as well in The Power of Habit. Actually, James Clear does give credit to Charles Duhigg in his book and say, he's just expanded on some of those principles. But it's a great, great book. Both of them are very, very good and well worth reading, actually yearly. I would read the Atomic Habits book yearly. It's very, very good. So in the area of eating, as we talked about, excuse me, there's the probability of that yo-yo dieting, gaining back all the weight and more after you've reached your goal. And how many people has that happened to? I read about it all the time, and it's been true for me too. I've gone down and I'm thinking, oh, I'm such a good weight. And then I get a couple comments and I'm going, oh, I'm doing so good. And then I start binging. And then, oh gosh, another 5 pounds went back on. And, but a true competitor with that competitive spirit, they want to stay in shape for the game. So if they are an athlete, it's tough getting back in top-notch shape again. They don't want to get all the way out of shape. So they are going to keep their level up. And they'll take some splurging times, but not to go, all the way back down. So such a big yo-yo. And the same thing applies to business. With so many people and businesses pivoting and creating a small goal to see what's working and what isn't will help you build upon what is working. And I talk about this in the free webinar, actually working remotely through any economy. That's one of the principles, is to build upon what is working and to simplify. It's a really, really important principle. We tend to say, "Oh, there's just too much. I'm overwhelmed." No, start and see what's working. And I've shared recently in a lot of my posts some of the new sheet music that I am putting out, especially for the holidays. And as this airs, it's getting that time, and the promotion has actually started as this airs. And I found that sheet music was selling because people, they just need something to do. And they're excited to just have something new and more of a connection. And I'm putting out instrumental tracks for accompaniment tracks, really for the very first time, of some of my really wonderful arrangements, especially holiday Christmas arrangements. And I was looking to see what is working, what can I do really well. And it still takes a great amount of time, but once I've put together now some systems, I know how to launch them. I know I've got the method down. It takes a lot of time getting that little system together, but now I've got that down, and it's only going to be good for the future. So that's creating a new system, a new little habit of what I'm doing, and to make sure it's really valuable. And it's repeatable. So that's another one that I can do it again and again and again. And it's almost like a habit of doing it again and again and again. It will really help you develop and keep a healthy mindset if you do build on what is working, especially if you're discouraged and you don't know what to do next. And I would bet some of you who are listening to this are in that camp. That it's you've tried some things and you're still wondering what is going to work right now, and how am I going to get back to the level, or how am I going to develop a network? Is this ever going to happen again? Am I able to really be able to expand with a large group of people? It's going to take a little while. And so you have to be creative. You have to see what is working. Take those tiny little baby steps, one step at a time. Experiment on some of the social media and be able to expand that way. And all of that takes time. I always say, number one, you build on your own land first, because social media, they can change the rules overnight on you. They can take down your posts. They can do all of that. But always build on your own land first and make sure your website is together. You're able to do some of the editing. And I've got a lot of those tools and able to help a lot of people through that. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to cost a ton of money. But you have to take those little steps to be very self-sufficient, especially if you are dipping your toes or you're expanding on your entrepreneurial area in your life and your business. Little steps. So create a little game, see what's working for you, and then build on that. Say, that's working. Let me do another one. And then you need to know when to stop as well. Some people get so involved. I could have just kept going on some of this sheet music and ignored everything else in my business, believe me. But because it's so labor intensive, but I knew when to stop and what was realistic to put out this year. I'm still having all of my tracks that I can have available that I have public domain or that I've written. I can get those. I can release those without any extra fees, and I'm having all of those mastered. But I will gradually then get the rest of the sheet music and arrangements, because I want to do expanded arrangements on a couple for next year. So now I've got the system in place. I know how to put it on my shopping cart and all of that. So build on your systems, and this is sustainable. This will create, in my business, it'll create my residual income that I desire, and it's going to work while I sleep. The little bits that come in, they compound over and over and over. And it's really amazing how success breeds and builds on success. It's just, it's motivating, and it creates momentum. I love that word, momentum. It just creates that momentum. And in fitness, when you're out of breath, and many know that feeling, where you feel like, why I just went up this hill and I can hardly grab my breath. I am huffing and huffing and puffing. And then after a period of time, you found you can regulate your breathing. You can take intentional breaths and feel like you've got control. Well, that's a huge step in the right direction. That is a huge step in creating that new habit, of regular habit, in that sort of spirit of competition with yourself that you can personally, physically improve. And it applies to so many different areas. But it'll only happen if you push forward with the steps that will get you there. You can't quit, climbing that hill. You got to keep on, and you got to keep saying, okay, so what am I going to do today to grow a little bit? How can I be just a little bit better than yesterday or last week? Make it realistic. Do it week to week and just little bits by little bits. So to sum all of this up, this has been very, very good for me to produce this episode, because it's such a good reminder of how to keep your spirits up and your mindsets up. And to first, you start with something fun, with your competition. So you want to make this not a drudgery, but some sort of thing that you can play a little game with this with yourself. So you have a little scoreboard just for you, just to see where you're going. So first of all, create that reward. Where do you want to be a year from now? And that may change, by the way, as regulations change. Anybody in the financial field, if you're listening to this, how often do regulations change? And with each administration, so if anything changes in our administration, oh boy, there's going to be some changes. So, but that starts out with the goal, and then with a little reward. Our rewards, they don't have to be huge, but give yourself some sort of incentive to say, if I'm here by another week, if I'm here by another month, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend a whole afternoon, doing this. Or, I know I can, buy that outfit, or do something for you that you can, that would be meaningful to you. For me, it's getting outside. And for me, it's finding time to be able to work in my yard. It's just so freeing, which sounds strange probably to some of you, but it's just really fun. It's a total diversion, and I feel like I'm really accomplishing something when I'm trimming those trees. And then number 3 is developing that habit, and take the time to read one or both of those books, especially the Atomic Habits by James Clear. I highly, highly recommend it, because it's so easy to go through, and it gives you a lot of good guidelines through there. So I hope this has really encouraged you, and to stay positive, to create a fun way to grow, to reinvent, or even restart. And if I can encourage you, and I can prompt you for change, and if you're able to at least make some little changes, that brings transformation. And that's really what I want for you. Some wonderful transformation that you feel like, yes, I can do this. Because so many are not using their skills, resources, and talents, especially at the halftime of life. And it's even more severe after we faced a worldwide pandemic and shutdowns, and with the depression and all that's going on. So realize that you can do these little games to really help you get back on track. So I hope you join me also next week with the importance of nutrition at halftime. And this, I decided that Greg and I would do this together, because it's kind of a follow-up on the previous episode we did on the importance of exercise. That came out just this past September 22nd. It was episode 72. And I felt like we can really go into much more detail on nutrition. One of our sons was a personal trainer, and I do have a free download. I'll put that link in the article. Make sure you subscribe not only to the podcast, but that you get the weekly articles, because I do write an article around each one of these episodes. And I do have some goal sheet downloads that you can readily get. And I just checked the links to make sure those are all working. So anyway, if you tried to do that before and you can't, but you can now, to make sure you get that. But there are some great downloads with that. And our son that was a trainer was big and still is. He's an attorney now, put on 30 pounds of muscle, and he still looks the same. He looks wonderful, but he really watches his diet and the timing. And there's a lot to that, and we don't want to discount that. He just eats pretty clean, but he's very healthy as well. So that's a good thing. So I hope you listen and subscribe and tell your friends, please. Oh, I just love to help them and encourage them in their journey. And if you even write me a review, wow, would I ever love that? That would be really, really great. So, and if you're wondering, what are my next steps? Where should I go from here? Check out thewomenathalftime.com. I've just upgraded that page, updated it, and have some really wonderful steps for you on that page. So it's womenathalftime.com. My other websites are goalsforyourlife.com, djworksmusic.com, and you can always reach me through one of those websites. So thank you again for joining me today, Deborah Johnson, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us on Women at Halftime. Visit goalsforyourlife.com or womenathalftime.com for many more resources, downloads, and programs, or to get in touch with me. I'd love it if you leave me a review and tell your friends. So until next time, this is Deborah Johnson, signing off.